To say welcome to episode 26 of Redesigning Cities, the Speedwell Foundation Talks at Georgia Tech. I'm your host, Ellen Dunham-Jones. I'm a professor in the School of Architecture here at Georgia Tech, where I direct the Master of Science in Urban Design degree. And in fact, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. Check out our previous episodes on a wide range of topics on the Redesigning Cities website, on YouTube, and on our Podomatic channels. Contact us if you'd like to be put on our mailing list. This is the kickoff to a new year, and we're offering it this time in a hybrid format. We have an in-person audience here in the College of Design auditorium and an online audience on Zoom. Today's episode, Redesigning Cities for Local Entrepreneurs, will feature two remarkable entrepreneurs who consider themselves more as farmers than as real estate developers. Their incremental improvements seed the ground for affordable local solutions to help residents and more entrepreneurs revive neighborhoods. Monty Anderson and Bernice Radel hope that their work will inspire you to do the same in your neighborhood and engage in what they call gentrification instead of gentrification. Before we get started, I do want to offer condolences and best wishes to all of our friends who have already been hit by hurricanes this season and are, as I speak, facing down Hurricane Ian in Florida. Such climate disasters reinforce the need to redesign cities to be more resilient, but hopefully they do so, we can redesign cities as advanced preparation and not just after the damage is done. So at this point, I'd like to invite all of you, both online and in person, to pull out your phones and go to slido.com. If you could pull out your phones, slido.com, and I'm going to ask the GRAs to put the number here, the slido.com and the code number into the chat. So if you, at slido.com, if you enter the code, hashtag 3422696, you can post questions throughout the talk, and you can also like other people's questions. I really hope that you will post questions, but I will only be moderating Q&A based on what is posted on Slido. Folks on Zoom are welcome to use chat to connect with other online folks, but I will not be moderating Zoom for questions. We'd also love for you to follow, tweet, or post about today's talk on social media. And now, for those of you in the audience, please silence your phones because we are recording this event. I'd also like to invite you to save the date, October 19th, 3 p.m. for our next Redesigning Cities episode. It asks the question, if you change the house, do you change the city? We know that the American dream of ownership of a detached single-family house is being challenged on a variety of fronts. Diana Lind of the Penn Institute for Urban Research and author of Brave New Home, Our Future in Smarter, Simpler, Happier Housing, will join me and Andrew Bruno, the new Ventulet Next Fellow at Georgia Tech and author of One House a Day. The three of us will discuss the impact on cities and neighborhoods of exclusive single-family house zoning and alternative forms of houses and housing. See you there. Next, now today, I really am delighted to welcome Monty Anderson and Bernice Radel to share their work on affordable housing, small businesses, and incremental development as farming. After they present, I'll join them in a conversation about gentrification strategies and their background and really how do they do this before opening it up to questions. Bernice bought her first building in her neighborhood in Buffalo at age 25 for $1. Doesn't that already make you want to learn a whole lot more? Today, She's owner of Buffalo Development and Little Wheel Restoration Company, and has been featured on HGTV, the New York Times, Huffington Post, Preservation Magazine, and TEDx. She has a BS in urban planning and has won an award from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. She sits on Buffalo's zoning board and on the boards of the Incremental Development Alliance and form-based codes. Monty Anderson. Monty is a leader and founder of the incremental development movement, sharing what he's learned as president of Options Real Estate Investments, Inc., working in Southern Dallas and Northern Ellis counties in Texas. I've long been fascinated by his reinhabitation of dead strip malls with more community-serving uses and his creative solutions to non-subsidized affordable housing. He's won many awards for this work, but most of all, he's helped to revive communities. So Monty, why don't you share your screen and kick us off?
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. It is very nice to be here in Atlanta with you today. And it's always great to be with Bernice. It's funny, Bernice and I are at opposite ends of the country, coming from two different places, but it's just peculiar how we have so much in common, and yet different ages and generations and all of that, and come from just different backgrounds. So it's really great to be here today to talk about gentrification and not gentrification, because that's right on everybody's lips these days. It's like here in Dallas, here's from the Dallas Morning News, just to start us right out, West Oak Cliff, which is the part of the city, the have-nots. The plan obviously shows that Dallas has no clue how to fight gentrification. And it's really true. It's a sad state here, what's going on. My past is one of the things that a farmer, a developer like us does, is you commit to a place forever. And so I've served on city councils, and I've served as on different chambers of commerce, and really became a community activist many years ago before I became a developer. And so I've been doing this a little over 30 years now. And Bernice is very much the same way. I mean, she's like the little champion. I say little because she's short, but she's really big and her champion of her communities. And that's the one thing that we have in common with other community champions in other parts of the country. It is very much the same. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we talk about is this farming flywheel. And this is where every person in the community can actually get involved in building their community. I don't care if you're a lender or a CPA or an attorney or an architect, or you're a property manager, you're a clean parking lots, or you're a teacher, or you're a city staff person. You should be able to get into the flywheel here in some place and be able to be a part of your community. And we're going to talk about that today. So this is not just for the small developer. It takes a whole community to do this kind of work. So this is some of the projects that I've been involved in. It's very, very a wide range, from anywhere from boutique hotel to the infamous Texas Theater, where Oswald was captured after he allegedly shot President Kennedy, to small homes and mixed use projects here. So it's just like a farmer. We are the farmer here. He knows everything. He or she knows everything. They know when the weather's changing, or when a hurricane's coming, when this climate change and financial change are both like really serious right now. And if you're not ready for both of them, if you're not prepared and looking forward, and Bernice and I talk about this a lot, you're going to be in trouble. And so this farmer here, he's thinking right now of what's coming ahead, what kind of bugs, what he's got to do to his land, what he's got to do to take care of his community here. And just like the farmer knows everything about his field or his farm, we're the same way in the communities that we commit our lives to. So if it takes a village to raise a child, it really takes a whole community to build or rebuild a building. And this is just some of the people in my team, but it's bankers and city staff, and it's partners, it's title company people, it's agents and maintenance people and contractors and loan brokers and attorneys and CPAs. It takes all of these people to do a deal like we do. There's no way that we can have all the knowledge to do this. And so anybody considering getting into this business, just realize that you put your team together And this is how you raise your knowledge up, is by putting the right team together. So when I want to talk about this little beautiful street here in Dallas, see this street. This street was owned by one family, and you can see there's duplexes and fourplexes and apartments, and right in the middle down the street there's an orange house where the family used to live. And this family decided they wanted to sell their property that was started by their grandfather. And instead of breaking it up and selling it to small entrepreneurs, okay, the locals, because that's what gentrification is. See, gentrification is when the locals get the ownership, when the locals get the benefit. It's not where the big developers or the big REITs or the big corporations come from out of town and take the land and do what they do to it, which I call financial architecture. And so in this case here, they could have took this, sold it in pieces to locals. They would have made a whole lot of money, but instead this is what they did. Look at this. And here's what's going to go there. This. And this is what's happening to the beautiful neighborhoods in North Oak Cliff here in southern Dallas. This is what's happening all over the place. And so you go from people that could have owned properties to people that rent properties that are one bedrooms for $1,600, $1,700 a month. So this little lady right here, see, she was a housekeeper at my hotel, and I helped her start her own business. Instead of working for us to making $12 an hour, she now has her own housekeeping business. And this is her house. So we take somebody that was making $10 or $12 an hour, they start their own business, they take an old house, and now we helped her rebuild this house, where now you've got a real local owner, you got real culture, you got real people like in your neighborhood. And they're working people, working class people that have wealth. So you might take something like this. This is an old post office. You can rip the roof off and put a couple apartments on top. Again, this could be very much an owner occupant, whether you live there or whether your office is, like my office is downstairs and I own this building. I have 2 apartments upstairs. And so very easily, this could be done with an SBA loan if you're putting your business here, or an FHA loan if you're living here. So here's another little property here. This is a 2,700 square foot property, less than $500,000, brand new, which got 2 900 square foot spaces in the front, and it's 1 story, so it doesn't have the apartments on top. It's got them in the back, so it's all 1 story, 2 400 square foot apartments in the back. And so this building now is owned by the barber there, the guy in the purple shirt there. He's a 30-year-old barber who's now running a barber school, who now owns this building with rental properties. He's got some of his students actually live in the apartments. He owns 3 barber shops, a barber school, several commercial properties and residential properties right now. He's 30, I think he's 34 years old now, and he's teaching all these young kids how to do the same thing he is. And by the way, he still cuts hair. So he still stays close to his craft. So he's close to his craft, but now he's building wealth for his family. And he was raised by a single mom from Mexico. And so that's the kind of thing, that is what gentrification is. That's exactly the way it works. So let's see how these perform. Look at this Costco on the freeway right down the road. It's on the tax rolls for $8.75 million, and it's 16 acres. And if you divide those 16 acres by 8.75, you get 532,000 per acre. And look at all the roads around that Costco. Look at all the infrastructure, all the taxpayer paid infrastructure, keeping this thing going. Now let's look at these 2 little buildings we just looked at on Main Street. The first one, the orange one, is on the tax rolls for $2.2 million an acre. Okay, the second one, the 1 story, is on the tax rolls for $3.1 million an acre. So you see, if you build up a whole lot of these little entrepreneurial owned, locally owned buildings, you have a wealthy city. If you do it the other way, eventually you have a city that's bankrupt. So, and you're looking at alternative housing. We took this old school. This was an alternative school that the Dallas Independent School District had in a part of town that hadn't had any investment in like 70 years. And so what we needed here was we needed small entrepreneurial spaces, and we needed spaces where people could work or live. And this is what it looks like today. We took those, you can see we took those windows and we turned them into storefronts. And so this is a place where you can get a small space for a barber or a restaurant or a tattoo parlor or a nutrition place, and you can get a small space, and you can pay less than $1,000 a month, but the price per square foot is high enough where it makes it work for a developer. And on the second floor is work-live units. And these work-live units, as you can see, these are small spaces. They don't have restrooms in each of the space. They're built like dorms where the restrooms and the showers are in the hall. Now they're still private. So you can live here, you can work here, you could start your business by living in your space and working in there if you're creating sculptures or whatever you want to do, braids, or you're an Herbalife. We've got coffee office here. We've got all those kinds of things. We've got a real estate company. Those are the kind of tenants we got here. So where can you get 265 square feet and have a sign on the street? And this is one of those places you can do that. So again, by downsizing the space, you can keep the prices affordable and get the square foot price up. So here's one of our developments here, built one at a time. As you can see, that donut shop, that's 1,200 square foot with an apartment on the back. We built this old school. Then we built the brown building next, and then the blue one with the red awning, and then the orange brick, and then the 3 4-plexes with 700 square foot apartments up on top, mixed in with development of cottages and even an independent pharmacy. All of these properties are owned by local people. So there's no way a big developer or a big REIT is going to come along and really be able to buy this stuff up. So this is an unsubsidized homeless housing product. And as you can see why I'm not an architect, Ellen, this is my drawing starting off. And we did this back in April of 2017 for a place that's 90% poverty and 75% unemployment. It's called the Roommate House. And it was a solution to homeless people coming out of shelters having their own space. And as you can see, the top part of the drawing is 2 bedrooms and a living room and a kitchen. And then you've got these 2 roommate units connected on to the back. And here's how it works. The price of this back then, today, this would be over $200,000. The price back then was about $110 a square foot to rehab this 2-bedroom house and add the 2 rooms on it. And what we were getting in Dallas at the time, we were getting, we're getting lots of money donated. But they were giving away houses which weren't working very well because people that got those houses didn't take care of them. And so the money was used here as a loan at 2%. So an ex-homeless person owns this house. As you can see here, they're paying $527 a month plus taxes and insurance. And then they're renting out the 2 roommate units for $250 a piece. So this, all right, let's see, there it goes. So here's the house. Here's the living room, the dining room, the 2 bedrooms. And this is how this works on a single family lot where you have this door. See these doors, they're not locking. That means they're locking doors to keep you out. So you can have your own entry, the 2 roommate units. They don't have full kitchens. They have high-powered wet bars. And so these are the 2 roommate units, $250 a piece. And so this has really worked really well. And today, here's what you can see it here today. You can see the 2 roommate units coming in, and then the house up here. So it's a house owned by an ex-homeless person that's now a landlord. Sorry, and there's what it looks like inside today. So we didn't just put lipstick on a pig. Actually did a good job to actually make this improve somebody's life, because I feel like if you can't make the built environment better for somebody, it's really not going to improve their life. So here's the same thing done here, modernizing what we call suburban sprawl. Here's a 3,000 square foot house on an acre of land with a pool, and you can see it's in really bad condition. And so there's the floor plan, and you've got the living room, you've got the game room and the master bedroom and the kids, the 2 rooms with the Jack and Jill bathroom. And we split it up like this. So here's an aging baby boomer in place that may be in this part of the house. And then you've got a unit over here where you may rent out to a family member. Here's the door from the outside and the door that divides the space. Here's the door from the outside for another family member, a door that locks and divides the space. And here's another exterior entry. And this is 4 different people living in this house, which makes it very affordable for a family, but not living together. And just with a little bit of work, you can see you've got something here that looks really good. So if you're looking at affordable housing, if we look at places all over the country, in the most affluent places, you know, the problem is affordable housing, and the poorer places, the problem is affordable housing. So you've got to look at real estate differently these days. You've got to be able to look at it more than one dimensional. You've got to be able to look at it from all around. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Bernice to take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Monty. And basically what Monty just talked about, I want to extend the Buffalo version of that, right? And what Monty said, I've owned Buffalo now for 10 years. I've been doing this on my own with a big team, of course, for 10 whole years. But Monty and I were doing similar projects, as you'll see. So, and Monty's going to handle the slides. So advance to the next one.
My deal's not working, so go ahead.
Okay, I always say I'm just a little lady with $1 and a dream, and that farming, as we talk about, is a long game. Next. And I have one, oh, keep going. That's all right. The next, it's okay. I have a couple different phrases that I talk a lot about, but the one that I really kind of hunker down on no matter where you are, if you're in Atlanta, if you're in a small town outside of Atlanta, if you're in Buffalo or Detroit or Dallas, it's where you invest your love, you invest your life. And that is truly, if you do not love the place you live, if you do not love these houses and the people around you, it's love that often gets us through during the very challenging times. It's not easy to do this work, but it's super fulfilling over time. Next. So this is a map of like my farm. I live in Buffalo, New York. I'm on the west side of Buffalo primarily. Everything and anything I do is by bike. I have an urban planning degree, so I'm kind of a planning nerd. I literally, if I didn't have to drive in a car anytime, I wouldn't. Everything is around me. I live, I work, and I build and renovate here in Buffalo, New York, within my neighborhood. Next slide. And I wanted to show you, this is a basically one of our projects that I call Foibles. And this is us removing storefront for the first time in literally 60+ years, because thanks to our zoning code, the Buffalo Green Code, little legacy buildings are now legal in residential neighborhoods. Yet again, first time in 60 years. But here's a project I wanted to talk about. You could go next, Monty. There we go. Yep, that's it. So this is what the before and after look like. So this is a 2-unit, or 3 units technically, 2 residential, 1 cute little storefront. And thanks to the change of our zoning code, I was able to bring this building back to life in full, and basically be an outlet for a tenant of mine who wanted to start her own pie shop. And I want to talk about how we made this work, because as Monty said, you have to get creative. Those 2 apartments are able to pay basically the mortgage and the taxes and all the other things. And we were able to allow the pie shop to come in at an extremely affordable rate, all because I did work on the weekends and painted it myself with the help of friends. And we thought really creatively about how to essentially code hack this building. So hit next. Sadie, she's the owner of the pie shop. I asked Sadie one question. I said, can you cook with electric instead of gas? And Sadie was like, well, sure, I could do electric. And I go, great, because now we don't have to do a $80,000 sprinkler system. And you know, I can keep your rent at like $525 a month instead of being $1,000 a month, which you know, is so important to her and her business and the thriving of her business. And that's really important to say, like, how do we, you know, how is this a win-win-win for everybody, right? My mortgage is still paid. The apartments are still affordable. They're like market rate-ish, a little bit below that. And Sadie is able to start her pie shop at a very affordable rate and come in and actually give something cool to the community, like vegan pie and coffee is awesome. And she lives right down the road, and she, you know, she shovels the sidewalk and takes care of the properties, and that's really important. Next. And so we take that philosophy, the do well by doing good philosophy, into everything we do. And I want to kind of throw a couple projects out there. This was a house I bought it from the land bank, bought it, renovated it, and we sold it to a first-time home buying couple off market in the middle of COVID when prices would have been $30,000, $40,000 over market. We were able to meet in the middle, waive fees, make it happen for their budget at $189,000 for a brand new, fully renovated house. And that may sound like a lot, but that is like an $1,100 mortgage, which is less than what they were paying for rent. And we wanted to meet with them where they are. We worked it out. They got what they needed within their budget, and we were able to make it work within our budget. Even though I could have sold this for probably $210 all day. Next. 585, this is my office building. We did this gigantic mural to the Latino community. We wanted to make sure that they felt safe and that this neighborhood, as it changes, is welcoming to the people that live there. This building is 11 units. I'm able to keep the rents at $550 a month to $850 a month with zero subsidy on this project, zero. Why? Because they're really cute. They're really simple. I control basically every aspect of it. I do all the construction. We do the property management. We take care of the residents. And because I was able to get some creative financing from my partner investor who really cares about affordable housing. So I was able to have flexibility to keep this building affordable. Next. I was inspired by Monty. We took this downtown Main Street building and cut up the main space and turned it into 12 different tiny storefronts, basically for small businesses. Almost every single one of my small businesses are women, and the majority of them are Black women. And I think this is so cool. We rent spaces out for $375 to $650 a month, cakes, nails, clothing, etc. And it's become this cool little hub. Next. The Huntress, again, same concept. I was able to renovate these apartments. This is right down the street from me right now. Renovate these. There are two Black-owned businesses. One was a popcorn shop, the other a nail salon. Each of these rents was $650 a month because, again, I control all my in-house. I'm my own contractor, my own property manager, and I was able to buy it very cheap, renovate it well, but renovate it still affordably because I hold the keys. I control the costs as much as I possibly can. And therefore, we are able to do our work. Like, we get paid, we still have value in the building, and people get to start their own businesses for $600, $650 a month in a place, even in Buffalo, that's like half of what somebody would pay for, if not more. So I named this little building the Huntress because I think that all your buildings should be named cute, ferocious little things. So anyway, so that's like another great example of the projects that we do. Next. And then this is a project we're working on right now. Buffalo has the duplex in Buffalo is called the Buffalo Double. Now, we used the double 100 years ago. The Buffalo Double was a sign of wealth. You had your own apartment and then you rented out the other apartment either to family or friends. And still to this day, like 80% of Buffalo homeowners are like these doubles. And so what's so cool about these projects or these buildings is that if you buy a double for $200,000 and you can rent the other apartment out for $800,000-$900,000 a month, your mortgage is essentially paid for, which means you're building wealth in other ways. You're saving money for your children, you're saving money for retirement, you're investing money in whatever is you want to, right? You can start to build generational wealth that transcends you. And that's very important. So with this project, we took two doubles, turn them into triples. So the top apartment is like the family apartment, 4-bedroom, super big, super beautiful. And then the first floor are two apartments, one 1-bedroom and one 2-bedroom. Why? Nanny, grandmother can take the 1-bedroom and the 2-bedroom can be rented out. Maybe you want to Airbnb one, you want to rent the other one out. Maybe you go from a big family down and you want to downsize to a 2-bedroom and you rent the big one out. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's a flexible housing choice for people over time, right? And that's very important. Next. So those are some examples of the projects that I've done in Buffalo. I've done actually hundreds of them. We've been working like crazy. I have a staff of 10 or 15, depending on the day. But Monty and I and another friend of ours in South Bend have started doing this project this year called Neighborhood Evolution. And what we're trying to do next, Monty, and Monty, you can jump in here too. What we're trying to do is work directly with communities to help like literally zero in on a neighborhood, or, you know, and basically help them bring that neighborhood back to life, or whatever they're trying to do. And Monty has this beautiful 12-step process that we've been working through, 12 steps to neighborhood development. You want to chime in?
Yeah. See here, this is where you may be one of these people. This could be anybody in a community. So we think that community development ought to be done by lots of different people, which is the way it was 100 years ago or so. That's where the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker owned property and had a couple of rental units. And in this case here, if you start off with farming and your step 1 and 2, which is the most important thing, is committing to the place, committing to your neighborhood. And then if you go from there, it's into acquisitions, which you use lenders and CPAs and attorneys and asset managers. That's the people in acquisitions. And then once you acquire, you're into improvements. That's architects, planners, trades, carpenters, plumbers, sheetrockers. See, sheetrockers shouldn't be eliminated from being developers also, right? A sheetrocker, a painter. And then on to when you're finished, and you've got leasing and selling with real estate agents and marketing people, and then into property management, maintenance people, janitors, bookkeepers, and then you repeat the process again. And so everybody in the community can get involved and own.
Go ahead. Sorry, Mom.
That's right. No.
Well, and I think what I think is important to say is I have a planning degree. I don't have a construction background. If you had asked me 7 years ago if Bernice, you're going to own a construction company, I would have laughed in your face. Right. And so I had to step up to the plate because we were missing so much of this in my community. And I wanted it to be done in a way that is a win-win-win, just like Monty. And there's people doing this all around the country that are doing a similar model where we say, all right, this isn't about big development. This is about neighborhood level development and bringing as many people in as we can and making change, or making, well, I shouldn't even say change, making this work for our communities in a way that helps and serves our neighborhoods. I never say that I'm perfect, never, ever, but you cannot say I don't care. You know, I'll show up at 4 a.m. if somebody's locked out or whatever the case may be. I was delivering lights before I started here. And the point is, everyone, if you're sitting here, you can get involved in this, whether you're an architect or a planner or a drywaller or whatever you can to help this world. Because what Monty has said, and I will say, it's the big development that's really taking over the world, the country especially. And the only way to fight back against that I can tell you, we can't destroy a system, a whole system, right? It's happening whether we like it or not. The way to fight back is to own, is to buy, is to be local, is to invest in our neighborhoods and you know, be as present as we can in this process. And we all have a role to play in that. And that's so when we think about the 12 steps, Monty and I have been trying to teach people, talk to people, give them the confidence to do this as much as possible, because there's so much work. I mean, we're talking about, you guys are in Atlanta primarily. There are major capital companies like Blackstone, or I forget the name, that are buying $50,000 properties at a time. You know, these are huge impacts in our local communities, and we only really solve them if we have many people that own and many people that believe and invest. So I'll get off my soapbox, but
Let's show it just quick. Let's show how a sheetrocker can get into the flywheel. So the sheetrocker C is committed to his neighborhood or her neighborhood, and they're working in the neighborhood. They're working for Bernice. They're working for me. They're working for Ellen. They're working for whoever they're working for. And then all of a sudden they see a building or a house they can buy, and see all of a sudden the sheetrocker buys that building or house. And that can be a maintenance man, that can be an architect, it can be anybody. And that's how you get into we can talk more about that in the conversation in just a minute.
Yeah, and just we wanted to end with this. You know, we've been doing a lot of work in South Bend, Indiana. They just won a major award from the Form-Based Code Institute about their zoning code. Our colleague Mike Keene has been really active building there, and we've been working like one-on-one with developers, small scale developers there. And the point I wanted to make, I'm sure Monty, you have some thoughts here, is that each one of the people that's involved in this, it's a lifetime level commitment, or at least 10 years or so. So when you have 30 people in a room, all that are giving their all, the energy that comes through is so magical, right? Everyone starts believing in South Bend again because they say, wait a second, you believe in this and you're committing, you believe in this and you're committing, and all of a sudden you get this magical swell. And I mean, mark my words, I swear, we will look back 10 years from now. We're going to look back and say, what did South Bend do 10 years ago or 15 years ago to see this growth? And because they are really like leading the charge for small and medium-sized cities.
Yeah. Look at this guy, this picture to the top. They're one of the guys is the economic development guy in South Bend. And the lady that's sitting in the window at this conversation here, she did not own that building. She was an art maker space. And we taught her how to own this building, how to negotiate. She bought a strip center, and today she owns about like 12,000 square foot strip center with 4 or 5 tenants in it, and she's got her space there. So so now you've got gentrification, you've got the locals. I used to call this sticking it to the man, kind of, it's kind of like, because this is where this is how the local middle class, I think, can build wealth again, and that's the way this country was built. And it's got to go back that way, or we're gonna be doomed. We think so. We think that everybody, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the architect, the planner, the sheetrocker, all ought to get a piece of the action.
Yeah, and that's all I had really. We wanted to open up for Q&A and kind of talk through. But I hope y'all realize that you can do this. If you really want to invest in your community, you can do it. It's not like Monty. I didn't start with $1 million. I didn't start with anything. And so you can do this if you really put your mind to it. If you're out there with planning degrees in architecture, you already have a leg up because you understand buildings, and so it's so necessary. I mean, not just in Buffalo, but Detroit and Cleveland and Cincinnati and Dallas and Duncanville, where Monty is. No matter where you are in the United States, it's necessary. It's important.
Thank you both so much. I mean, I think these are not the kinds of projects we typically see in the lecture series in the School of Architecture that are super high design, but I think these are they're so important to neighborhoods, to cities. And I think it's really interesting what you say about ownership. Architects often complain, the realtor gets 6%. and we've spent way more time, working on stuff. And that message of the importance of owning property, especially as we are facing all of this, the big money that is going in big. You've really touched on a whole lot of, I think, is super important. We've got to scale this up.
Yeah.
And maybe some of those buildings, maybe some of them will get a little more, even more hip design. I don't, from people who, if that's what some of the people want to do. But I want to really sort of start a little bit more at the beginning. And I want to focus on you, Bernice, tell us more about how did you get started in this?
Okay, well, I wanted to get a job in real estate. So I started minimum wage as a maintenance coordinator, coordinating toilet complaints and no heat calls. And I did that, worked my way up, I did the largest energy retrofit in the city of Buffalo's history in the middle of the recession, 2008, 9, 10, 11. It was 16 buildings, 250 units. We did boilers, roofs, windows were necessary, all multifamily, all historic. And I managed all those subs. I was like 22 years old. And so, and I was just really dedicated. I didn't really know. I just asked a lot of questions, and I was still going to school full time, going for my urban planning degree. But then what happened, and this is important to know, and I would have never predicted this. I wanted to start my own development company because they were tearing down buildings in my neighborhood. But I said to myself, well, I don't have any money, but I'm smarter than these developers. They just have money. I don't have money. So I started my own little LLC. I created a little vision statement and I made this cute little logo. And I said, I'm going to figure this out. And I was at a conference in Boston, talking about my energy retrofit work, because by this time people were like, who the hell is this girl in Buffalo doing these major renovations. And I was like, I mean, I'm little, but I was also 22 at the time. They were like, what is this girl doing, right? And in that moment of me talking about the buildings that I was doing, I said, took the opportunity. I said, if you really care about the earth and climate change, and you want to care about energy efficiency, like you need to come over to Buffalo and start investing. All these buildings are being torn down. I challenge you to come and help me. And in that crowd was one person, one person who worked in real estate in Brooklyn, New York, and literally came up to me at the bar afterwards and said, hey, I was like really compelled by your story. I'd love to help you. And I just followed up with him. And we are still partners to this day. We are still partners. The 585 Niagara Street building, he was able to angel invest money. So we were able to keep the rents as affordable as possible. So a lot of people say, well, you were just so lucky. It was half luck, but it was a lot of hard work. And I think it's important to say, if you really put yourself out there, there is money available for your projects. And there are people who want to invest in you, but you have to meet them halfway. You have to show that you're willing to do this and work. I mean, I worked for 4 years for minimum wage. I couldn't even afford a car. I biked to every one of my meetings and had a little moped, and I took the bus everywhere. I mean, I'm not telling, it's not like it. So anyway, I hope that explains it. So I'm now 36 and I have my own company, and I've had for 10 years, but even there's still moments within each week that are stressful, but getting there, took a lot of dedication.
I think you guys are very different. As you've pointed out, you live in different parts of the country, you're different ages. You also have sort of some different political affiliations, and you're working in Texas versus working in New York is different. And yet, so tell us a little about what can we do in Atlanta? We're sort of, we're probably more like Dallas than we are like Buffalo.
Yeah.
But Monty, you've done a little work in Atlanta. Tell us what you thought was applicable. We're a kind of booming economy, but perhaps more like Dallas. We still have all those bypass neighborhoods and things.
Yeah, a couple things. You get lucky, first of all, when you commit to a neighborhood and to a place. You do get lucky. And so, but Atlanta and Dallas are really similar because we've got a lot of suburban sprawl. We've got a lot of those neighborhoods that were built in the 60s. And so not everything has to be we show a lot of small housing today and a lot of small retail, but not everything has to be that small. I mean, retrofitting these big shopping centers, that were built in the 50s and 60s. Well, actually, even built in the malls and things built in the 80s and 90s, they're going to have to be retrofitted. And, they're going to have to.
You're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, the suburban repair for sure. Queen of suburban repair for sure here. But, there's still housing. You got these sprawling houses like the 3,000 square foot house that I showed. You've got sprawling shopping centers. You've got the first ring suburbs, which had better shopping centers, I think, than the later ones that are on the freeway, where at least the neighborhood's connected to those. The neighborhoods are connected to those and surrounding those. So those can be repaired easier than the power centers, on the freeway. I don't know what we're going to do with those things. We're going to have to figure that out one day. But I mean, you're going to have to see where if you look at a property the same as everybody else. If I look at a single family house and I say it's a single family house, I got to buy it cheap and I'm going to flip it or I'm going to lease it or whatever, then you got thousands of people looking at it the same way. Same way with a shopping center. If I'm looking at a shopping center and I'm going to replace it with another dollar store and a AutoZone and a Sally's Beauty or whatever it is, if you look at it that way, there's 1,000 people looking at things that way. But when you start to take those shopping centers and you cut them up differently, and you can put, I'm doing one right now that we're putting residential, 51 units in the middle of a parking lot of a shopping center. Or if you're taking a big manufacturing plant and you divide it up into small, like the studios and like TikTok, it's the TikTok era, right? It's photographers and filmmakers and music, and not just recording studios, but rehearsal studios, places for people to collaborate, co-working in offices. If you look at office, how big is your office today? This is how big your office is. And then, 20 years ago, our office was, credenzas and conference tables, and now we're into co-working. But to make co-working work, how do you make that work? You got to put the secret sauce in it, which is really what we are as farmers, why we keep talking about being farmers. You have to immerse yourself into it. You have to be in it. You like Bernice and I, one thing that we are the exact same. We do leasing, we do property management, we do construction, we do development. We'll raise our own money. So we're in that flywheel. We're in the middle of it. It's not a pyramid chart where we're the CEOs. We're the working middle. We're running the working middle, and you just have to put yourself into it. And you look around yourself and you ask yourself, what is missing? What is missing? Women are outliving men. So above 60 years old, white women outnumber white men 3-2. Black women outnumber black men 2-1. We have, have to look at where these trends are going. Where all those women that are above 60 years old going to live? They're not going to live in McMansions. They're going to live in. So those are the things that are the same in Dallas. And so in affluent neighborhoods, you got affordable housing problems. In a poor neighborhood, you got affordable housing. And so one of the things that I'm always thinking is, how can people get more money, or how can they live more quality? Maybe it's a little bit smaller, but that's where Dallas, where Bernice could buy a house for $1. She can't buy those anymore. In Atlanta and Dallas, we never could buy them for $1.
Right.
So, but we have to look differently. We cannot look at it the same as we did in getting to where we're at today.
And I should just point out one thing, even though, because everybody says, oh, you bought your house for $1 or 20,000, but that was the value of the houses. So we face the opposite. It's a similar stress level, but it's the opposite, right? If the roof cost 20,000, but the house cost 10,000, you're not going to invest the $20,000. So I love and I hate it when people say, oh, but it's more affordable there. Well, we had to create value from nothing. Like I had to plant 100 tulips every year to get my neighborhood to feel more beautiful in the spring. Like it was like, because that's all I could afford was 100 tulip bulbs instead of like this, a place where there's a lot more money and a lot more resources.
It is all relevant. And I would say this, if there's good stuff, you got parts of Atlanta where the cool stuff is going on. Okay. If you don't go in there to get started, go to the next neighborhood over, or the next one closer. Go to the places that are the next, they're more likely to come along, rather than if you skip and go way out somewhere. But you have to look for the opportunities. And Bernice is right. It's all relevant. It may be cheap, but she can only get cheap rent too. So I
can't get any loans, right? Yeah. So I couldn't get a loan for the first 7 years of doing this work. Everything had to be cash. Where do you find the cash? Okay, let's start there. So it's just a different level of pressure, but I really encourage you to not get discouraged by that, because whether you're in Atlanta, Dallas, Buffalo, Detroit, there's money, but there's also loan products, which we do teach a lot about. There's loan products out there for people for different types of buildings, which we can't get into today, but just know that it is possible, to figure out a path.
So kind of sticking on the questions of sites where this can happen, how do you actually select which building you're going to buy? And who are you typically buying from? Are they these properties that have gone into foreclosure? Are they owned by the city? Are they owned by banks? Is there a pattern? I
tend to, I know Monty of a lot. Foreclosures, developer people who bought too many and don't know what to do with, or caught in a tough spot, stuff on the market. Rarely actually do I buy stuff on market. I usually hear, and I'm like, they're like, oh, this property's, I always get vacant properties that are ignored. But I would say land banks, like the land bank, that's all kinds of, yeah.
I think all of the above, Ellen, what you just said. Here's what happens again, go back to this farming thing. I can't help it because it's our step number 1 in our 12 steps. But when people know that you care about the neighborhood, so let's say that you're brand new out of school here and you've done some street markets and you're involved in the Chamber of Commerce or wherever, the Flower Club or whatever you're involved in. When people know that you care about your neighborhood, they tend to, especially I've had older people call me and just say, I want to sell this to you. I don't want to sell it to the other guy. The money doesn't matter. And that is such a good way to to buy rather than having to beg or, cold calling on people to buy their property, or buying it after it's already listed. After it's already on the market, it's too high. But I look at properties. I just bought a shopping center recently that I've been looking at for 15 years. So I'm always looking at what could be. Like, what could this shopping center, what could that old warehouse be? What could that house be? And so in my mind, see, when you're a farmer, you're responsible for the whole neighborhood. So whether you own it or not, you're always dreaming of what it can be.
Yeah, you also hear what the neighborhood is lacking or needs. So one of the things that you have to do in this industry, like, is listen. You have to just hear what people are saying. So you'll hear, oh, we don't have a laundromat. Okay, well, let's figure that out. Or we really need coffee, right? Or whatever. And so you hear these, and then you may connect the building that you see in for sale with what the need. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, let's do a nail salon because there's nowhere to get your nails done in my neighborhood, So, and you just hear it and see it. I have one other thought on this too. I tend to fall in love with buildings. I don't know, Monty, you kind of say don't. I will fall in love with, like, one of the houses in the slide, the pink one. I literally bought it from the land bank because I had tin ceiling in the dining room. That's it. The foundation was crumbling and needed like $20,000 worth of foundation work. I didn't care. The tin ceiling, I've never seen it like that before. I'm like, we're saving this. I'm saving this house. So I tend to kind of, I don't know.
So, I loved when you guys spoke about, or Monty, you talked specifically about that it's so important for more people to own, have the ability to own rather than rent, be stuck in the perpetual rent. There's nothing wrong with renting if that's what you're choosing, but if you're being forced and only have that as the option, that's a real problem. So how do you avoid gentrification? I love that, Monty, you showed the map with all the little buildings clustered in a neighborhood that you're working on, have worked on. But you also showed us how the property tax, these are being assessed really as super high value. How do you think, I definitely agree with the idea that having more local ownership is raises all boats much more than the typical sort of big developer gentrification that we see. But is it another form of where's that line? Does gentrification eventually become gentrification, or what do you think?
Well, it kind of does, but what you hope that people in your neighborhood make more money. So it's not only about the affordable housing, but if I can empower you with wealth or owning your own business, or if not everybody's an entrepreneur, right? And not everybody wants to own. And there's nothing wrong with leasing. In fact, leasing is not always the worst thing. You don't want to be a fool and buy something too expensive, But here's a couple of things I say. Here's how you stop gentrification. You don't allow the super blocks to be done. No super blocks. Leave the lot small. Put a lid on it. Do not allow these 6-story. Keep a lid on it at 2-story, 3, whatever you want. Access to capital, financing, and access to equity for small entrepreneurs. See, today the federal regulations of banking are the same for Bernice and I in Dallas and in Buffalo as they are for the big, real estate investment trust. The regulation that the regulators look at our banks. And so our banks, even though they want to loan us 100% of the money or 90% or give us good terms, they can't, because the law doesn't allow you to do that. Yeah. So how do you put together an investor deal? That's part of the gentrification, where you have the right investors. So I went to a billionaire one time to get investment capital, and they were terrible, because the billionaires had all these gatekeepers, attorneys and CPAs, and they're squeezing everything they can. That's why they're billionaires. But what I found was a lot better was the local baby boomer who had $1 million or $2 million in cash that they'd saved up from working at AT&T or teaching for 30, 40 years. They had saved. And that's like Mike Keene, our other partner. He was a professor, and he saved his money his whole life. And now he's funding his own out of his retirement, he's funding his own deals, but he's able to invest with other people. And so those are the ways that if we could bridge those gaps, bridge those people with money, those baby boomers who are exiting at this time or graduating, with connecting with people like Bernice and younger entrepreneurs. And then you can also know what you're doing, how to put together the package where you understand what a banker thinks like, or what the planning and zoning, what they're thinking like, what's going on at City Hall, what are those things, getting involved. I think you have to get involved in your farm. Again, it's going back to that. You want to get involved, you want to be at City Hall, you want to know what's going on, you want to attend the comprehensive planning meetings, you want to attend zoning changes and those things. And that's how you learn to stop gentrification. I mean, we ruin the culture of our communities when we put those ugly, 6-story apartment buildings in. We just ruin the city. Not enough people are rebuilding what we had that was good.
Yeah.
It's because they can't, because the land has been gentrified. It's gone up so high in value because the zoning, so nobody local can buy it anymore. See, once you go from 2-story to 6-story, the land speculators go up in value, it goes up in value. And so you can no longer afford to build a 2-story.
Yeah, we just need to chime in too, because there's a lot of planners, architects, city kids on the line. Ask yourself, does your zoning code allow mega blocks? Like the City of Buffalo Green Code, we do not. You cannot have more than 120 feet long project. Your project can be 3 stories up to 5. And there's some transit, some along the rail line that goes up a little higher, but you can't do those mega blocks. And if you're thinking, well, how do I avoid mega blocks? Well, does your zoning code allow it, right? So you could make a change there if that's your strong suit, right? And I guarantee you probably 90% of Americans, of the codes in America, allow 300 feet wide buildings, right? So, and we see them in new codes, new form-based codes will say, oh, you can allow 300 feet wide buildings. It's like, what? That's a mega block. That's only going to be for what Monty just said. The REITs, the big billionaires will invest in those, not local people. So can you change those? Can you change them?
It's financial architecture. It's actually, buildings built for the finance, not for these humans. Though we have this saying, doing good and making money. So, I'm a capitalist and I don't apologize for it, because you have to make money and it's important, but doing good and making money, they're equal. See, they're totally equal. They're not one's ahead of the other. And so making money, a lot of people that do good have problem making money. They feel bad about it. Yeah. But you need to make money.
Yeah, I'm always like, if I make money on a sale, I'm always donating money and trying to do more. I like it. It's just in my nature, but it is really a challenge, but you have to, the thing about sustainability is you have to sustain it. Yeah. That's really the answer.
All right, I'm gonna start drawing on questions. So again, want to encourage everybody in the audience, online or in person, to go to slido.com, and the code is in the chat. Post your questions. We do have quite a few. And really right away, I mean, first off, Victor, and I think Bernice and Monty know there's only one Victor who I think we're talking about. Says, says, Bernice, you're a giant. Tell us the origin story behind the name Little Wheel.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I guess it's twofold. So, so my last name is Radle, R-A-D-L-E, and the loose translation is like Radler, the beer, is like wheel, and I'm little. So I was like, okay, let's do Little Wheel. That's a loose one. But I also believe that we all play our roles. I always say I'm just a girl. Like I'm just a girl with $1 and a dream. Because people say, oh, you're doing your thing, you're doing so much. But we're just a little wheel in like the big world, right? And we're just doing our little projects in our community. And over time, I step back and I think, oh my gosh, in 10 years, we did so many things in this neighborhood, all with like a teeny tiny, small but mighty team. And it's impressive. And I'm glad, Victor, thanks for asking that.
All right.
You're not going to be able to get away with that little wheel for very much longer. You're gonna,
I know.
There are a couple of questions, and I really add my own to this too, that how have you navigated the single family zoning laws when you are chopping up, especially like that, the sprawl suburban house into 4 units? And as well, Bernice, when you're turning the double into a 3, I mean, how does that, how are you working the zoning?
Well,
So I think Bernice has got better zoning for sure
Yeah.
in Buffalo than we
Yeah.
do in Dallas. And we're starting to recognize what she's talking about there. But
mhm.
here, what we had to do is hack the code. If you took a house like I've done it and you don't have an owner occupant in it and you turn it into 4 units, rental units, and you have it on a small lot with 4 cars, you're going to attract attention and it's got to be bad for you. But I've tested this now with 2 cities, Duncanville and Dallas. If you're an owner occupant and you got separate spaces for family, I would call it family and friends. Not, you may make a friend by renting to somebody, and you have the doors, there's lockable doors like hotel rooms that used to lock, and you don't have kitchens in those other units. You can't have kitchens in them. You can only have hot plates, but we can't have a grill out in the backyard. There is a grill out in the backyard. So one can have, so there's one we call the shepherd. Okay, that'd be the owner occupant. And that's how this would work. This doesn't work for developers going out there and saying, I'm going to chop these up and I'm going to turn them into apartments. That's not going to work. That's not what the roommate house is. Okay. And you're going to get in trouble. It's not going to be good. And same thing's going on with Airbnb today. People that have an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit in the backyard, and you're renting it for Airbnb, that works because you're an owner there. When you start to take the house and the ADU and you start to turn them into hotel rooms, then eventually cities around, and cities are all over, are saying we're going to stop Airbnbs because of that, because people are changing whole neighborhoods into Airbnb. And so those are the things you got to do. You got to have the lockable door. It's got to be part of the house, but this way, this is really like co-housing, except that it's a more sustainable way, because if you come into my house and you drink my milk, or you leave your socks laying on the front, step, and stuff, then I get mad at you. This way you have your own space. Or if my elderly dad wanted to live with me, I don't want to live with him. He could live in this spot over here, or a nephew could come and live with me, but not live with me.
Yeah.
And I know in parts of California, in Los Angeles, there a house or a home, a residential unit is defined by the number of kitchens. So as long as it's 1 kitchen,
Same here.
that kind of, gets you around.
The code hacking part is what Monty's, the hot plate is not a kitchen, because the kitchen is defined by a stove. And if there's no stove, and we say hot plate, but these things are the new broiler oven things are so fancy. You basically can put the turkey in the convection oven. Yeah, that's actually how we got the pie shop. She worked with convection ovens instead of gas, and we were able to save to not do the sprinkler. So it's a similar thing to the city. They were like, okay, well, there's no grease, no gas, no flame. So you're able to save so much money, which then transfers to the tenants. I wanted to say, and I just have to do my gospel for zoning. Working in a city that has overhauled the zoning code is magic. But it took us 6 years, 242 meetings. And our zoning code is award winning. I know some people, it's not perfect, but I don't have to. All my buildings that I showed you are fully legal because we removed minimum parking requirements citywide. So I could put 3 units, I could put 12 units up with not a single parking spot. We're comfortable with density. We allow ADUs. We make these legacy shop fronts all legal with so it's really unbelievable what it's like to work in a place with a really good zoning code that supports a walkable community. And very few people in America have that luxury. And I feel very fortunate for it, but really want to encourage you to change the zoning codes wherever you are.
Hey, and don't
look
go
at
out,
it.
don't go out. Don't go out and build a tiny house community out in the middle of nowhere, because you can't live small unless you got things to walk to.
Yeah.
If you live in, you can live really small if you can walk to the barber shop or the bar or the park, but if you live way out in suburbia, and I see people here trying to do that all the time, trying to build these small, tiny home communities out in the middle of nowhere, and they go great. What do you do out there? You got no place to go to.
Yeah. Well, that was another one of the questions, was how do you deal with parking? But,
where Bernice just said, in Duncanville, Texas, which is a first ring suburb of Dallas, where I'm at now, I move back and forth to wherever my developments are quite often. But our main street here, our little main street, which is mostly one story, which you saw some of, had parking requirements forever and no development. It was, and the city came in finally through a help of a good new urbanist. One of our new urbanist help planners helped us do that, and did away with parking requirements, and everything is 100% occupied today. Everything. It's amazing. But it's just like one thing. They didn't have to incentivize anything. They didn't have to do anything else. Just do away with the parking requirements. But it's still a problem. It's still a problem in Dallas. But Dallas is considering right now reducing all their parking across the board by 50%. Just whacking the code as we speak.
And you want to talk about affordability, right? So if we're here talking about gentrification and we're talking about affordability, well, it's expensive to supply parking. And many zoning codes require 2, 3, 4, 5 parking spots for a 2-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom apartment. Well, now all of a sudden you're knocking down the house next door to put in a parking lot, and that's a problem. It's very expensive. Or if they require garages, to build a garage right now is like $40,000, $50,000. And so all of a sudden that's an extra $500-$600 a month on rent for the garage, right? Just if you amortize that loan. So that's a huge problem. And we lifted it, frankly, Buffalo lifted it because we're poor. And we said we cannot afford to provide parking on every project. And I think that's been, I don't want to say a blessing because it's not fun, but it's been really fun. To see how creative people have been to solve parking solutions, but also not provide parking. And it's never perfect, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Garages
hardly are ever used here for parking. They're used for storage and junk and all the stuff that hoarders you should be getting, so.
Yeah. Another question is, how do you actually find your tenants, and do you sometimes have to choose? Are you choosing between entrepreneurs, and have you had? We know you've had successes. Have you also had some failures?
I've had both. I'm sure Monty, you have a million stories.
No failures. I've never had a failure.
Yeah, right.
That's a lie.
I've had. You have all kinds of different people that you're working with, and the more you do it, the more you're going to get good and bad experiences. That's important to start with. No matter what you do, no matter how much you help, or no matter, and on both lines, sometimes you don't meet their expectations, or vice versa. It's a difficult world that we live in. But I tend to find my people just by building. I'm in the neighborhood, right? So I hear what people hear, like what they want, but I also hear that this chef is looking for a space, and all of a sudden I'm like making the phone call. I'm like, hey, let's get you over here in this building, or I have a building. Would you want to come see it? So I think that you can find entrepreneurs by pop-ups, markets, farmers markets. That's where you start. Instagram. I know Instagram's sort of declining a little bit, like in general, but you can still see. Go on a wedding, like if you see a wedding photo and you see all the businesses tagged, the florist, the photographer, the makeup artist, all of those people are your tenants, potential tenants. And so you can reach out to them. You start communicating with them, DMing them. You're like, hey, cute flowers. And then they're thinking about you and they're looking for their space. So to me, it's all about being involved, being really kind of aggressively talkative. I wouldn't say talkative, but like just communicating and working with people and building relationships over time. So that would be my thing. I have had things fail. It's hard to say it out loud, but I've had people not pay. I've had people that you think is going to work out and it doesn't. They have to break the lease because something happens, and then you're mad at each other, or the best scenario is you're trying to figure out how to get them out of it because they need something's happening in their lives and you have to try to fill that space gently with, and so we go through those often. I mean, our whole world is problem solving. Every single day we are problem solving. And a lot of it, to me, at least, is with tenants and tenant needs.
You go back to the farming. When you're a farmer, you know everything. I mean, you know who's moving around and who's doing and who cooks the best biscuit or the best pie, where the best barber is, where all those things are. And so when somebody needs something, when you're a community activist, farmer, neighborhood evolver, town maker, like we are, champion of our cities, then everybody knows that. And they say, Monty, do you know of anything? Bernice, do you know of anything? And so we get those, literally, they just walk in the door, Ellen. They just, and then you get lucky. Again, I say the luck, Bernice said she was lucky earlier. I think I'm really a lucky person too, because we commit to what we do. The universe smiles on us, and tortures us too, believe me. But the people just walk in, and I have about nearly 500. I thought I had 450, but I have about 500 tenants, and that's a lot these days. And I'm very personally, I know a lot of them. I mean, I know them. And so I think that's really difference between the corporate, the big corporate and that. And when you know that, you can sense the market. I can tell you way before what the experts are saying, the market analysts are saying.
Mm-hmm.
I can sense it. I can tell you when it's fixing. I can tell you right now we're going into a recession.
Oh, yeah.
And because of how many people can't pay.
Yeah.
And what's working, and where manufacturers are losing their contracts, they're not getting as many, and lots of things. So you can really sense the market, and you know what to do. And if somebody said, Monty, I want you to build me out a 5,000 square foot restaurant today, I would say you're crazy. Mm-hmm. You want me to build you a 1,000 square foot restaurant that you're self-serve and not very many wait staff? I would say, okay, we got something to talk about. So it's kind of that scale of what you do. Yeah. You know those things. I don't want to get invested in a 5,000 square foot restaurant because they're likely to be out of business in a year, likely.
And that gets to.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Bernice.
Well, I just wanted one thing. So one of my pushes for affordability with commercial space or tenant space is exactly what Monty just said. Can you pay the rent when the world turns upside down? So if you don't allow your buildings and yourself to get too far out of control, then, being conservative helps in a weird way, right? People can afford a $400 a month rent. They can afford a $600 a month rent. Even when things get tight, they can still make that work. And so there's safety in that. And it's important to allow that to tell so I tend to renovate on a dime, right? But then I also have my apartments are much more affordable, but it's because I never want to overextend myself personally, mainly because I don't have I grew up I've been evicted. Like I have, we've grown up and I've dealt with that my own self. And so it's just important to not let yourself get too far away from what you can control. And Monty is right. Like we are seeing it. I don't want to scare anybody about a recession because that's not my job. I can't predict those things, but we do feel it, right? You say, okay, as soon as gas started rising, you see people paying, maybe they don't pay the full 800 rent, they pay 300 and then another 200, right? You see these kind of changes. Or a year ago, I would have 20 people looking at a space. Now I might have 10. Right, commercial space, or 5 really. So it's just different.
I really liked one of the Monty's projects that I talked about in the my recent book with June Williamson on retrofitting suburbia was DeSoto Market, and how in a former Ames department store, or Ace department store, I guess former department hardware store in a strip mall. Monty, the mayor, was asking Monty, like, can't we do better than a dollar store here? That's all that wants to come in. And Monty suggested an incubator for for people who to pitch their ideas of what kind of new business they wanted to start. And Monty, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding was that you told the mayor, look, I'll outfit the space for lots of little tiny startup shops, but you need to also mentor these folks and set up a program that really helps small business entrepreneurs who've never done it before learn how to do the accounting, the forms, and just the savvy of marketing and all of the things you need to be a successful business.
Yeah, me growing up, see, I grew up as a motocross racer. Okay. I didn't go to school, any higher education. I just barely got through high school. Many of my friends in Southern Dallas are more like me. And we could go and start the lemonade stand. Okay. But we couldn't go to school and learn how to run the lemonade stand. We had to go start it and be in it. And then we could know we got to go get some special training to handle our accounting or legal or, how to pay our taxes. And so what I knew from being involved in the territory that I'm involved in is that I had many people like that, and they needed that entry level place to start. But how do I make it? So how do I do good, and how do I make it make money? So I could downsize the spaces enough where I could lease them for as little as $350 to $400, but I'm still getting $25 a square foot, $25 a square foot. So it worked for the developer, and that's a lot more work because there's 50 tenants in that 26,000 square foot Ace Hardware store. But it allowed people to begin to test themselves to see if they were suited to be entrepreneurs. And Ellen, probably about 35, if in the beginning it was 50 to 60% didn't make it. And now it's about 30%, 35% done. But you know what? I'll take a chance on somebody just because with no credit, not much money, but good attitude, hustle, and those things. I'll say, okay, let's take a chance. Let's see if it works. And I got to say, again, a lot of times it doesn't, but the times that it does, it's really, really special.
Yeah.
And it's really, because I got a guy who sells Cajun food who does $25,000 a week out of a trailer in front of that shopping center. So that's one that does. So it allows people to do it without having to go get big loans, and sign leases for 5 years and those kinds of things. It really is a good project.
And I want to just do a little plug for DeSoto Marketplace, because I was so intrigued by understanding this. I went to Dallas to see this in real life, and I came back and said, we're going to do this in a smaller space. And we and it's not the same kind of breakup, but it's seeing it in real life, seeing all the different vendors, seeing that it's vibrant, that it's actually working is so cool, because you're like, wait a second. Yes, there's 50 different businesses in here. They all and they employ 1 or 2 or 3 people. This is like a big deal. And I really encourage you guys to check out. Money, what's the website? Is it like DeSoto.org or
just growdesoto.org?
growdesoto.org.
Grow DeSoto.
Yeah.
Grow DeSoto.
All right. I want to kind of close up with now a kind of the bigger picture. So we've been talking about how much you guys keep your rents low and are able to help all these small businesses, and you're reviving buildings. And Monty, you got into the property tax per acre. So really that question of what is the actual quantified benefit to the city, to the larger community in economic dollars. Mike Messner asks, have you done analysis on your property tax rates versus the nearby developers and versus suburbia? And, in that sort of property tax and the property taxes per acre. So the rate in the acre kind of stuff. And talk a little more. Bernice is covering her mouth.
I'm actually embarrassed to say that I haven't. I have in the past. I don't have the number like off the top of my head. And I'm embarrassed as an urban planner to say that to a bunch of people who I love and respect. But I could run the analysis and send it around if anybody's interested. I do know it's hella like way more than what Walmart is paying.
We've done it quite a bit. And in fact, Mike Keene up in South Bend and Neil Heller out of Portland, who's a planner out of Portland, did an analysis on South Bend, and it's just through the roof. I'll just say that. It's just through the roof. And our projects here, it's pretty traditional for most of the big shopping centers. and big suburban developments to be like 400 to 500,000, 600,000 per acre. Whereas our stuff, all of it is in the millions per acre.
Yeah.
And it's across the board. And they say, because we can't get sales tax records, those are private. They say that sales tax is similar. They say that sales tax is similar.
Do you think it's just, is it? So I've heard, Joe Minicozzi has made a career out of this metric, property tax per acre. And Joe says that a lot of that has to do with the rate in the cities are always denser property. The appraisers will say that they always appraise denser property higher, at a higher rate than the low density stuff, even though Joe says, well, why? And doesn't really get much of an answer.
Right.
So do you think it's the rate that you're being charged? I mean, what's up with this? Or it's just the appraisers?
No, it's a value. No, it's
It's the value.
Commercial properties are based on their value. I mean, it's the comparable values in the market, the appraised values. It's not because they're denser. Well, they're denser because they take less property. Okay. So they take less property. They're more efficient. They're more efficient.
They don't require as much infrastructure and roads and
Don't
all
have
the
all that
public
expensive
expenditure.
parking and garages that my Midtown development, which is a mixed use residential development down, they're smaller lots. It's the same with the residential versus a 3,000 square foot house on an acre of land that costs $600,000 or $700,000, and the sewer to get to that house and the road to get to that house is hugely expensive. Where my development is in the town on really existing, a lot of existing infrastructure. The sewer lines are shorter from place to place. The police can get to it easier. The fire can get to it easier. The school, more kids go to the school without being traveled around the countryside on a bus. There's just, it just goes, it's based on the assessed value here. These are based on assessed value. So that's the taxing assessors. Everybody's getting the same. And of course, a commercial property is worth what it makes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's like residential is very emotional, but commercial, if Joe's kind of saying that he doesn't know, or the appraisers aren't answering, in commercial, it's worth what it's worth. Well, however much rent you get minus your expenses gives you a value. Bingo. And so just to put it in perspective, one of the buildings I posted, the one with the mural on it, like for example, that's maybe 50 feet wide at the most. And it goes pretty deep. That's 11 units. I pay $10,000 a year in my taxes there. So, and that roughly, and it's like, well, that little teeny tiny building pays $10,000. And that's a lot of money for the city. I mean, they do nothing for me. They have to snowplow like one corner, 9 times a year and have a little sewer. So it really does add up. I don't know about other places, but I know here in Erie County, in the city of Buffalo, we actually pay a county tax, and all of that tax goes towards county services, not city, because the county cannot afford to sustain the roads and everything else from the suburban tax.
Listen to this one. I got a 90,000 square foot shopping center that's my newest project it's on about 7 acres. Okay, right just down the road, right by the city hall. It was on the tax rolls for $3 million. Okay. We just ran an analysis on it with our newest leases and some of the initial work we've done. It's now worth $17 million. When we put the 51 units of apartments on the parking lot, which we have plenty of parking, it's got to be worth $30 million. So with no new infrastructure and just using what you got, repurposing what you got, we go from 3 million to 30 million overnight. That quick. And they say in this town that we're out of land because we're only 11.2 square miles. They say we're out of land. What they mean is there's no sprawling acreage that we can build, 1 acre lots in suburban lots. That's what they're saying when they say we're out of land.
Well, this is really, you guys are a fount of knowledge. I hope you've inspired everyone who's listened here to go out and do the same things. We didn't get to all of the questions. Bernice, I think there's someone who wants to just ask you literally like how you're doing all of this. What, I know you guys do give workshops and things. Where should people go who want to learn even more, really dive in the next step?
Oh man. Well, if they want to contact me, they can go to my website, buffalodevelopment.com, or you can go on Instagram, which is Buffalo Development, and it's Buffalo, not Buffalo. It's Buffalo Development. So, or you can look me up, Bernice Riedel, on Instagram. You can find my stuff there too.
Same with me. You can go to optionsre.com, but very soon, Bernice and my work and Mike Keene's work out of Incremental Development Alliance, has evolved to the neighborhood evolution. So it's neighborhoodevolution.com. It's coming soon. This is the first time we've even announced it or talked about it openly. So the difference between Incremental Development Alliance and our new neighborhood evolution is that we're not just talking about the little fourplexes and duplexes anymore. We're really talking about neighborhoods where they're at today and where they need to evolve to. So, and we still say the little pie shop with two businesses above is still extremely important and is the basis. But you'll be able to find us there going forward at neighborhoodevolution.com.
Thank you. And again, I really wish you could join us at the reception that I'm about to invite everybody who's here for. Thank you, all of you online. You've been listening to episode 26 of Redesigning Cities, the Speedwell Foundation Talks at Georgia Tech. A video and podcast of this event will be posted to our website, arc.gatech.edu/redesigning-cities, where you can also check out the previous episodes. And with that, I say goodbye. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ellen.